Welcome to the UpNex AI podcast. It's Friday, May 15th, 2026, and here's what matters in AI today. First up, OpenAI says hackers stole some data after a code security issue. TechCrunch reports the company said the damage was limited to employees' devices and that user data and production systems were not affected. OpenAI also said none of its intellectual property was stolen. The added context here is that this was tied to a supply chain style incident involving TanStack, an open source library used by developers. According to TechCrunch's reporting, OpenAI said 2 employees were impacted and the company found unauthorized access and theft of credentials in a limited subset of internal source code repositories those employees could access. OpenAI said it is rotating certificates as a precaution, but also said it found no evidence that its software was altered or that existing installations were at risk. Why this matters is pretty straightforward. Even when a major AI company says the blast radius was contained, this is a reminder that the AI stack depends on ordinary software supply chains, developer tools, and open source components. The frontier model race may look like a compute story on the surface, but operational security is still very much a software security story underneath it. Our second story is a big capital marker for the industry. The Financial Times reports Anthropic has agreed terms on a $30 billion funding deal at a $900 billion valuation. The FT says Dragoneer, Greenoaks, Sequoia Capital, and Altimeter Capital are set to lead the round. Even with the important caveat that this is reported deal terms, not a completed company announcement in the packet, the scale alone is the headline. A round that large, at a valuation that high, tells you investors are still willing to back frontier labs at extraordinary levels as the competition for models, infrastructure, and enterprise distribution keeps accelerating. And it also says something broader about the economics of this market. These companies are still being valued not just as model builders, but as potential platform companies with long-term leverage in software, search, coding, enterprise workflows, and cloud demand. We had earlier reporting that Anthropic was weighing a near $1 trillion valuation. This appears to be that story taking more concrete shape. Now, to the research section. A paper on Archive called Talk is Not Cheap. A taxonomy and benchmark coverage audit for LLM attacks asks a practical question that a lot of AI security work tends to skip. Not just whether a benchmark is hard, but whether your set of benchmarks actually covers the threat surface you care about. The researchers propose a reusable audit framework built around a 4x6 target-by-technique matrix grounded in cite-dried, and a 507-leaf taxonomy of inference time attacks. In plain English, they are trying to map the attack landscape in a structured way, then check whether popular benchmarks are actually testing different kinds of failure instead of repeatedly testing nearby versions of the same thing. And in the paper's summary, when they apply that framework to 6 public benchmarks, they find the major frameworks occupy non-overlapping cells and cover at most 25% of the matrix. They also say whole threat categories, including service disruption and model internals, have no standardized evaluation at all, despite published attacks in those areas. That is the useful takeaway. If your security story is built on a narrow benchmark set, you may be getting a very incomplete picture of model risk. Bottom line, a benchmark can look impressive and still leave entire classes of attacks effectively untested. Are you building apps with voice? Elevate your app's voice capabilities with 11 Labs. Their API is a game changer for embedding dynamic, responsive voice interactions in your applications, providing unprecedented realism, flexibility, and latency. In fact, you're listening to one of their voices right now. If you are a developer looking to elevate user experience with natural voice interfaces, this is your solution. Visit upnex.fm/11 to check out their latest offerings. First, Fast Company reports Martha Stewart has launched a new AI startup called Hint, an always-on home management platform. The company reportedly raised $10 million in seed funding and plans to launch this summer. The idea is to pull in public property data, combine it with user-provided documents like inspection reports and insurance policies, and use AI to help homeowners track maintenance and repairs. Next, OpenAI is bringing Codex into the ChatGPT mobile app. The Verge reports users will be able to access the coding assistant from iOS and Android, extending a tool that can write code and use apps on a computer into the phone interface. It's another sign that coding assistants are moving from standalone developer products toward being built into broader consumer and prosumer AI surfaces. And finally, AWS says 2 new models are now available in SageMaker Jumpstart, GLM-5.1-FP8 from Z.ai and 5.4 Mini Instruct from Microsoft. According to AWS, GLM-5.1-FP8 is aimed at agentic software engineering and longer multi-round coding tasks, while 5.4 Mini Instruct is positioned for efficient reasoning in more resource-constrained settings and supports 24 languages. Before we wrap up, a quick note. This podcast is generated with the assistance of AI and is intended for informational purposes only. All referenced articles, research, and commentary remain the property of their original authors and publishers. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And that's your briefing for today. Full source links are in the episode notes, and we'll be back Monday with what's up next.